Separating the saints from the sinners. I am your heavenly host, and joining me are the virtuous Johnny Vegas, the blessed Bridget Christie, the diabolical Mark Watson, and the well-wicked Alan Davis. Right, let's see if the devil really has all the best tunes. Bridget goes. Wow, that
doesn't suit me at all.
Not in the slightest. Mark goes. Johnny goes. And Alan goes.
Finally.
Is it going to do that every time?
Would it not be great if every time you opened a door, that music played, I think?
Every time you opened your fly.
Right, I think we can take our halos off. We begin with a question about not shaving and soul saving. Are beards good or evil?
Oh, that's a bit disappointing.
I want the whole thing. I want the whole thing. It's like you're not the devil after all.
I've no idea. I just wanted to press my button. Good, they're good. Jesus had a beard, and at least he's depicted in all imagery as bearded.
Yes, he is.
He's famously good.
Yes. Anybody else?
Well, I would argue there's baristas.
What?
On the one hand, Jesus. On the other hand, coffee
Baristas,
snobs.
yeah. We're talking hipsters here, we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Every major religion has had some point have had a debate about whether beards on men are good or evil. And then there was a guy called Bouchard in France in the 1160s, and he complicated things by talking about the inner beard. Yeah. Any thoughts? You two have got actual beards. Any thoughts on the inner beard?
We're not meant to talk about the inner beard, are we?
Yeah, the whole point of Inner Beard Club is you don't talk about Inner Beard Club.
So Bouchard and his fellow monks, they were all clean-shaven, OK? All the lay people had beards, and he inadvertently offended them by writing a letter in which, frankly, it was misinterpreted as an anti-beard comment. And even some people thought a threat to burn their beards off. So he wrote, I mean, this is talk about overcompensating. He wrote an entire treatise called In Defence of Beards, the Apologia de Barbas, in which he wrote of the great strength and wisdom beards denoted. Now he risks offending the monks because they don't have beards, and he said, but they had an inner beard.
But what about the inner top of the head?
Yeah, the tonsure.
You could do a lattice work
So-
like a tart.
Have nuns got inner beards?
Well, some nuns had inner beards, some
Had outer beards?
had outer beards, yes. Why might a woman, a saint, decide to grow a beard?
For equal pay?
A false beard, a fake beard, a disguise.
No, so there's lots of stories in Christian tradition that women want to ward off men. So, for example, Saint Wilgefortis, right? Saint Wilgefortis, her dad was desperate for her to marry a king, and she didn't want to, so she prayed to be made repulsive, and she immediately sprouted a beard, at which point her father...
Opened a circus.
He should have done, but instead he had her crucified. I mean, that is quite cross, isn't it?
And that's an overreaction.
Yeah.
He could have just grounded her for a bit.
Yeah. When I was in Cinderella at the Old Vic, and I played the storyteller, and it was a man, so I had a fake moustache, and I so quickly got used to it. I found myself in the wings on the second night going, it's going rather well.
It's day 3 when you find yourself tying someone to railroad tracks and going...
So what do we think about moustaches? Like them, don't like them?
You can do anything with a moustache, I think.
I don't think you can do anything with a moustache.
Well,
I don't
you
think
can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, that is true. Bouchard, the monk who was in such trouble about beards, argued that it's a monstrous sign and should be avoided. And in fact, it has caused controversy in the past. So in April 1907, all waiters in Paris's top restaurants went on strike over the right to grow moustaches. And the strike cost the industry 25,000 francs a day. It was quite a thing. And it led to assaults on clean-shaven waiters who were still working. Why do you think moustaches were banned?
Hygiene's the only thing I can think of.
He had a long moustache before it dangled in the soup.
I know. This is around the time you first get modern restaurants in Paris, and they wanted to recreate the experience of dining in an upscale home, and domestic servants were not allowed to have facial hair.
For a long time, I just associated it with geography teachers. That and corduroy.
Yeah.
They're all a bit undernourished as well. Everyone in the geography department was a bit skinny and bearded and in corduroy.
Yeah.
And they looked like they were on the verge of orienteering at the drop of a hat.
There's a real kind of moustache on a teacher like that when you walk in and you go, divorce.
Housemate, when I was at university, he had to shave twice a day. He had just very rapid growth. And I could see if he had extremely rapid growth that you would just give in and have a
Yeah,
beard.
I just think can't be.
What did he shave twice a day? Everything or just one?
Just his face.
Right. But was everything else growing at the same...
I made no inquiries about everything else.
There's certain blokes, and here looks like that, and then the rest of them looks like an untamed gorilla.
Sometimes you get a surprise hairy back. Someone you wouldn't expect.
Do you know what I do? I just put loads of double-sided tape against the wall and throw myself at it.
You want to throw the cat? You peel her off and there's a cat shape.
The worst thing is you realise you live alone. You've got to ring your friend. Can you come and get me again?
Have a look at this. This is a very strange idea of a possible method to improve shaving. It's a satirical print, I have to tell you, from 1749. A horse-powered mass shaving device. So you put your face in a hole and the razors whirl around on the inside. It says on
That's
there...
a lot of pressure on one horse, isn't
I know.
it? Not to...
It says it can shave 60 men a minute and also oil, comb and powder their wigs.
There'd be some fatalities, I imagine.
You
I mean,
reckon?
if you got it wrong.
Yeah.
What a way to die, though, being shaved by a horse.
Yeah.
One bloke who thinks it's a peep show and he loses a nose.
It's like yo sushi. But
It is like Yosu.
It's like it's where they got the idea from. Yeah.
yeah. But if they... So the blades are going to cut one fellow and then cut... Because they're going around... It's the same
It's one
blades.
cheek at a time, I imagine.
Or you'd end up with more hair if you were at the end.
What, off the razor?
Yeah.
I don't know, Bridget, if it's possible you're overthinking it.
I have got that.
How would you learn how to shave somebody else, do you think? They used to do it with cut-throat razors, but you don't want to start on somebody's face.
On a dead person?
Wow, that's dark. No.
Well, you know, you're...
It's just worrying how quickly you came up with that.
Yeah.
Because there's no... It's quite risky shaving somebody
Yes.
if they're already dead.
I suppose the stakes are low. Yeah.
I want to go to barber school, but it gives me nightmares.
I was going to say a balloon.
I know, a balloon or a corpse, whatever.
Look at all those weird dead people.
No,
Look.
it's a balloon. I mean,
Do you
pop
know
along
what?
to the morgue and go, I need to practice me
Have you
cut-throat
got-
razor.
I think it's
Yeah.
much better.
I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm a barber in training.
Yes, you'll be fine, Sarah.
Hi, would you like to see the body? That can't be Daddy. He had a massive beard.
It'll be less frightening because those balloons, they pop very easily and I would have more nightmares popping a balloon with a
don't like-
weird face drawn on it.
You don't like popping balloons, do you?
I think that's your go-to answer on anything. What's the best way to learn chiropody?
On a dead person.
Paula the Bearded grew facial hair to save her soul. But what's the best way to weigh our souls? No, sorry, I'm saying it. What's the best way to weigh our souls?
Aye.
Someone did do an experiment like this.
They did, yeah.
A scientist in the old days weighed people just before and just after they died.
21...
21 grams.
Yeah, he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. Does the human soul have substance? Does it have mass? So there was a doctor in Massachusetts called Dr. Duncan McDougall in 1901, and he decided to fit a bed with weighing scales, and he got 6 dying patients to lie in it in their final moments, and then he recorded their exact weight just before they died, and then just afterwards. What I like about this is, first of all, he persuaded 6 dying people.
Yeah.
6, yeah. He specifically chose people who had got conditions caused by physical exhaustion, so things like TB, for example, because he wanted them to remain still so he could get good measurements. It wasn't a flawless experiment. I have to say one patient was thoughtless enough to expire while he was calibrating the scales.
So he has to stand them on the scales.
No, the bed is on scales.
This is quite an elaborate machine.
Yeah. He measured one subject as losing 21.3 grams when he died, and he concluded that must be the weight of the soul. And for a very long time, that is what people thought. People thought the soul weighed about 21 grams. So they carried on making more experiments because he wanted to make sure. So he got 15 dying dogs. I mean, I don't know where you get them from.
Is your dog dying? Can I weigh it?
Well, he believed that dogs didn't have souls, and sure enough, none of them lost any weight when they died. They didn't lose the 21 grams.
I don't know, what does 21 grams weigh, like?
I know that if you're making a macaroni cheese for
Yeah.
the family, you need 40 grams of flour.
Imagine the idea that your soul weighs half as much as you need of flour to make a macaroni cheese. It doesn't seem like a lot.
Well, the fact is, 2 of his 6 subjects didn't give any measurements at all. But also, at the time, there was a physician called Augustus P. Clarke, and he noted that there's often a sudden rise in body temperature when people die because the lungs stop cooling the blood, and as a subsequent rise in sweating, and that would account for the 21 grams.
That makes
There you
more
go,
sense.
Right. Why should you never envy sloth lust?
Oh, look at his little face.
What, the 3 sins, or the...
Well, so it depends which way we're going. Let's talk about sex with sloths first, shall we? Why
Yes,
not?
please.
It'd be weird if we didn't talk
I
about
tell
it.
you, I'm first in the queue for that one.
Isn't he the she? I don't know.
Yeah.
She.
There's a look on that face, isn't
Yeah.
there?
I mean,
Ready.
That
That's
come
like
to
a-
bed, no?
I would not be kicking that out.
No, that is a,
Of whatever tree you were hanging in.
that is definitely a come hither look, isn't it?
It is, really
So
is.
sloth sex begins, the female screaming at the top of her lungs that she's available.
Oh.
Ah! And then the male
4
slowly...
years later.
Yeah. Slowly the man comes.
Did you hear that?
Before copulation takes place, he comes slowly towards her. Then it lasts as little as 5 seconds, and that includes the foreplay.
Yeah. Well, I think she's probably sorted herself out before he gets there, hasn't
Do
she?
you reckon? Well,
And then,
She's
like, I've been screaming.
A lovely turn of
Yeah.
phrase.
yeah.
I sorted myself out before you arrived.
Yes, you were too slow, I'm afraid. I've had to sort myself out. Stopped at the pub again.
Up to half the females in the area can have children from a single male because they just think, oh, he's here, this one's here, and I can't wait for another one. He's
on the branch,
it's just taking too long.
as they say in Sloth world.
So
Was he on the
Look at
branch?
him, he's
He
going.
was.
I'll be with you in a minute. Just fix me wig.
Yeah.
Really, it reminds me of somebody, and I can't put...
It's Ozzy Osbourne. It looks just like Ozzy Osbourne.
It does. Did you say sloth or sloth? I mean, both are correct.
I say Sloth.
I say slow.
Yep, I say sloth as well. I don't know what... Anyway, it was... so the sloth itself was named after the sin.
You see them in the trees, obviously, and they go along the telephone wires, kind of hanging upside down. It's quite impressive, you know, this sort of all-action hanging upside down, go from tree to tree like that.
But you want to be careful, though, if they're above your head, because a sloth can poo 1/3 of its body weight in a single go.
Oh, it's so impressive.
That's amazing.
That's weight loss right there.
That's 25 to 30 kilos for me.
That's, you know...
If you look at that photograph, the thing that's intriguing me is that eye there looks like I'm in the mood for love. And then that one looks like, did I leave the grill on?
It doesn't. So let's have a quick look at the 7 deadly sins. There's pride and wrath and envy, lust, gluttony, avarice, or greed and sloth.
Are they in order?
No, not particularly. We can put them up for you. There you go. Pride, wrath, lust.
So which one is the woman combing her hair, then?
Lust. She's getting ready for...
Yeah, she wants sex so much that she's literally combing her hair.
Yeah.
What, with herself?
Yeah.
What she's doing there, Bridget, is she's sorting herself out.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's going to sort herself
For
out.
herself.
Yeah.
The original Greek list had 8 sins, including akidia, so that was like melancholy, listlessness, that kind of thing.
Has saying, I'm going to love you and leave you ever been one of the deadly sins?
It should be, really, shouldn't it? Yeah. Or it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, or having a mug that says coffee o'clock. There's a lot that's missed out by this.
That. Tristitia is despondency as well, on the first Christian list.
Why did they get rid of the 8th one?
They kind of folded them all in together. Pope Gregory I decided to fold lots of things in together.
Potpourri was the first.
Pope Gregory I.
Right. Did you say potpourri?
Potpourri.
Potpourri.
I cannot believe there isn't a pope called Potpourri.
The most fragrant
surely.
pope of them
There
all.
should be.
Surely. Why did this guy get so many column inches?
I know this.
Yes,
because
I'm willing to wait.
the saint blokes, monks
Saint
who
blokes.
stood up on pillars.
Stylites?
Yes, that's exactly
Stylites,
what I
they're
was
called
going to say.
stylites.
People who deliberately lived like that.
Yes, darling, absolutely. People who deliberately lived like
The
that.
David Blaines of their time.
Well, so we're talking about a monk called Simeon, and he could, like, suffer more than anybody else. We're in Syria. We're near what is Aleppo now, 423 AD, and he decided, Simeon, that he wanted to live an incredibly simple life. So he was going to decide to live on top of a pillar, 60-foot-high pillar, 2-foot square, OK? Now, he built up to this. You don't do this. That's not the first thing you decide. First, he entered into a monastery and embarked on a lifetime of austerity. Even the other monks thought it was a bit too extreme. He dug a waist-deep hole in the garden and stayed in that for 2 years. Then the monks threw him out. So he moved into an empty cistern for a while. And then, aged 20, he had himself chained into a 2-square-yard roofless sort of enclosure.
£1,000 a week in London.
Yeah, eventually he climbed a column, 60 foot high, and lived there. And he became known as Simeon the Skylight, or the Skylight. And he stayed there for 40 years.
And unfortunately, he died the year before Top Trumps was invented.
It sounds quite mad.
Quite bonkers, darling. He was fed with parcels of flatbread and goat's milk. We don't really know how. Either he lowered a bucket down or said small boys would climb up and give it to him. The thing is, it had the opposite effect of what he had intended. He was trying to get away from the world.
people.
And everybody went, oh, I want to go see the crazy guy who lives on top of a pillar. And huge crowds used to come. And then he would either stand with his arms extended like that, or he would repeatedly touch his toes with his forehead, like as many as sort of 1,200 times while the audience shouted out the count from down below.
And then he would defecate a third of his body weight.
I'm an avid collector. I'd turn up and go, where'd you get the column?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing about the column, darling. So this is 423 AD when he decides to take them. When do you think the column was destroyed? How long do you think it survived for, the
When
column?
it's near Aleppo, it makes me think, was it one of those recent antiquity...
2016 was destroyed by a missile. I know. It's...
Oh, really?
Yeah. It stayed there for all that time.
I think it became like a thing in America as well.
Well, there is a sort of spiritual descendant of it, which is the flagpole sitting craze.
In New York?
In the United States. So there was a guy called Alvin Shipwreck Kelly. And
Yes, the Irish guy.
The Irish guy. So this is him sitting on top of a pole. It was a big craze in the 1920s and 30s. And you see how long you could stay on top of a public flagpole. He was called Alvin Shipwreck Kelly because he claimed to have been in 62 shipwrecks in his life. But have a look at this next picture. He didn't just go and sit on a flagpole. This is him on a building, the Channon Building, opposite the Empire State Building.
Oh, my...
Having donuts and coffee.
That's really extreme.
How long did he do that for?
Well, on this particular occasion, I don't know exactly, but he spent over 2 decades doing this. 20,613 hours in total he sat on top of a flagpole. The thing we do know, which is very sweet, he met his wife, Frances...
Whilst falling from a pole.
No, she was an elevator operator, so clearly didn't mind going up. And she went up the pole to shake his hand, and they fell in love. He married her because she went up to say hello.
And then she plummeted to her death.
It is an extraordinary picture, isn't it? The thing that you have to think about the photograph is that somebody was higher up than him. Right. What's transparent, consistently thick, a bit of a pain, and comes from St Helens?
Hello, mate.
Is it a piece of glass?
It is glass, absolutely. It's the second best thing to ever come out of St Helens, after our very own Johnny.
Yeah, glass. And we invented... 2 things we invented.
Go on, then.
Float glass.
Yeah.
Which was floating the glass on hot tin, so you didn't have to polish the other side of the glass. And we gave the world porn because we came up with fibre optics.
You're absolutely right about float glass. It used to be very expensive to make perfectly flat glass. And this guy, Alistair Pilkington, in the 1950s, he realised if you pour molten glass onto molten tin, then it lies completely flat. It cools and hardens, and it made it so much cheaper. Other heroes of St Helens, the first photographs clearly showing a human face were taken by a son of St Helens.
Really?
John William Draper. And his sister Dorothy, they worked out new ways of making what were called daguerreotypes. They put flour on the women's faces to try and get more contrast before taking the shot. He's also the very first person, Johnny, to take a picture of the moon.
I never knew this.
Did you know that the largest bug hotel in the world is in your former school? They have a bug hotel more than 80 cubic metres in size. It's the largest one in the world.
Oh, wow.
You must be proud.
I've always been proud. I'm just dead chuffed for this.
What's the bug hotel?
A bug hotel?
Well, you build them and it's where bugs hide in winter.
Yes, you should. If you have any outdoor space of any kind, it's a really good idea to try and create a bug hotel.
Can you charge them like a hotel?
I mean, it depends on what services you're offering.
Yeah.
If you turn down the beds at night, that kind of thing. Room service.
A little chocolate on the pillow.
I'm just dead happy to be talking about St Helens on telly. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure.
It is. We were innovators back in the day. And then Thatcher!
If you're as close to him as I am, that was quite frightening. It was
One answer to everything.
that would have come out in a different question and it wouldn't have been apt.
I thought he was going to deck me for a second.
I'm glad you're all right.
I love my hometown. You really... Ooh.
Oh, I'm so pleased.
I can't. I'm lost for words. It's lovely.
Right. Who was younger than James the Younger?
James the Even Young.
James the tiny little brat.
Yeah.
Who was James the
He's a
Younger?
disciple, is it?
He's a disciple, yes. Also known as St James the Less, which is not as good, is it?
He's been called the Less.
This is him sitting...
Was this on the end? Is that
That's Simon with his hand going like...
Oh, shut up, James.
James, shush.
Listen, I'm not less. I'm very much the same size as the other James.
Yeah.
You ever talk about anything else? Simon, look at me. Look at me. Can't look at you. There's something weird on your left.
Don't look now.
So St James the Younger, some people think he's identified as one of Jesus' brothers, and I love a relic. OK? And for more than 1,500 years, the St Apostolic Church in Rome had fragments of a thigh bone that belonged to James the Younger. I mean, who wouldn't want to go and see that, right? Fantastic. And then 2020, it was radiocarbon dated by the University of Southern Denmark.
Those spoil sport.
Yeah. When they showed the bone belonged to the body of someone born between 214 and 340 AD. So the body, the thigh bone, was younger than James the Younger. So that's holy legs, but why might you come home from a pilgrimage with a vagina? So, just like today, medieval holy sites did a roaring trade in souvenirs, and people brought back badges as tokens of the journey, and they were often in the likeness of saints, but sometimes they were much, much weirder. And I have a replica here. Let me show you this one. This is a replica of a 14th century Dutch vagina shooting an arrow on horseback.
You don't often see them do that.
You don't. You don't. I can also offer you... I have here a phallus. A phallus with an... I don't know if it's a man or a woman pushing a wheelbarrow of phalluses.
I didn't think you could top St Helens, but this is really...
These are replicas of the various badges. What else have I got here? I've got a penis on a boat. I don't know why.
I know.
We've all met those.
But
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The guy on the phalluses.
Yes, the phallus.
There, on the top one, to the left.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a penis puppy farm.
It looks like he's selling fireworks.
little Monopoly.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good idea.
The,
Do you want to be the penis or the vagina?
Can I...
You've not been buying fireworks off that bloke with a massive cock again, have you?
Is it ever called a badge, Sandra?
A badge, yeah. I like that, yeah.
I think this is a thing that can be monetised. I might as well
I think
copyright that.
badge is good, yeah. Right, now, prepare for Judgment Day as we enter the limbo of general ignorance. Fingers on buzzers, please.
All right.
Where would you find the largest body of water in Africa?
It's not going to be that massive, massive lake. Is it going to be the Nile? Is the Nile the largest body? Is it, therefore, that massive, massive lake?
That massive, massive lake. What lake are we talking
Is it
about?
not Victoria? No. Is it a river that goes into a lake that never ends from the top of the continent to the bottom or something?
Are these all traps and it's just someone with a massive paddling pool or something?
Yeah, no, none of those things.
Is it underground?
Yes.
Oh.
It's underground, it's
Is it a
underground.
reservoir?
Underground, it's the most unlikely place.
Thank God. I was just
Sahara
gonna say-
Desert.
It is exactly right. Is it?
50 points.
Yes, well done, Alan. Very well done. Underneath the eastern end of the Sahara lies around 150,000 cubic kilometres of water. That is 3/4 of the total amount of water held in all lakes in the world. Wow. It's basically a huge mass of very wet rock, and every single crevice, every nook, every cranny is filled with fossil water, so water that's been trapped deep underground rather than it's part of the water cycle. Wow. And the Nubian sandstone aquifer system is the largest known fossil water aquifer system in the world. It spans a land area of 2 million square kilometres, lying under much of Egypt, Sudan, Chad and Libya. Right, what does this stand for?
It's not SOS.
Oh, OK, what does it stand for?
No, we're just gonna rule out
Just thinks
everything
it's
else.
not. It's not my home address.
It's not RSVP either.
It's not RSVP, thank you.
Well, it is ... ..
Yes.
Are we confused? Does that mean OSO?
The thing is, it doesn't stand for SOS.
Oh.
If it was going to be the letters, you'd have them with a gap.
Oh.
So you'd have ... gap, ... gap, ... It's a continuous stream. We say SOS is a convenient way of remembering what the signal is, but it could just as easily be rendered as VTB and remembered as vacate the boat. The thing is, the distress is universal. It doesn't depend on language. You don't need to know what the SOS stands for. We just know that that is the signal. Before that, they used to signal CQD, and then it was agreed in 1906 that they would make it simpler. There was a big international wireless telegraph convention in Berlin, and that's where we get the SOS from. But it doesn't actually stand for Save Our Souls.
And then they invented texting.
It took a while to catch on, actually. When the Titanic went down, they still transmitted CQD. We might think it was SOS, but it was not. And so it's time for another SOS Sandy's horrible scores. Let's see who's on cloud nine and who's in the sin bin. In fourth place, languishing in the pits of eternal damnation with -22. Oh, Alan.
Thank you.
In third place with -8, it's Mark.
I'll take that.
In second place with 7 whole points, Bridget. Holy mackerel. In first place.
Take your time with this.
The man from St Helens, Johnny, with 13. All that remains is for me to thank Mark, Johnny, Bridget and Alan, and I leave you with a sagacious sign-off from Audrey Hepburn. Makeup can only make you look pretty on the outside, but it doesn't help if you're ugly on the inside. Unless you eat the makeup. Good night.